Hey there. Thanks for being here. Go ahead and get yourself comfortable. Find a spot where you can really settle in and let go. This story is for you, and it's meant to be a moment of total calm. Before we start, if you feel like sharing, I'd love for you to drop a comment and let me know where you are right now and what time it is for you. It's a cool way to feel connected, even when we're all in our own quiet little corners of the world. And if this story helps you find a moment of peace, feel free to give it a like and maybe hit that subscribe button. It helps me make more stories like this for anyone else who needs them. Okay, let's get into it. Take a nice, slow breath and let the story begin. In a land far, far away, nestled in a valley where the sun always seemed to shine a little softer and the breezes whispered secrets through the trees, there lived a king and a queen. For many, many years, their kingdom had been a place of quiet contentment, a realm of gentle hills and murmuring streams. Yet, a soft sadness lingered in their hearts, for they longed for a child. They had waited for so long, with a patience as deep as the roots of the ancient oaks in their royal garden. They would often sit together, hand in hand, on a stone bench by a bubbling fountain, simply listening to the water's gentle flow, dreaming of a little one to love. And then one day, their quiet prayers were answered. A little girl, a princess, was born. She was a tiny, precious bundle, and her arrival brought a wave of peace and joy that spread through the entire kingdom, like a warm, soothing breeze on a summer afternoon. The kingdom celebrated in a most gentle and unhurried way. The news traveled softly from village to village, and people would smile and nod to each other, their hearts filled with a quiet happiness. To honor this blessed event, the king and queen decided to hold a great christening. It would not be a boisterous or loud affair, but a serene and beautiful gathering in the royal courtyard. They sent invitations far and wide, but with a special focus on the fairies of the land. These were not the mischievous sprites of common tales, but wise and ancient beings who lived in harmony with the natural world, their presence a source of comfort and balance. There were 13 of them in all, but the king and queen, in their thoughtful and peaceful way, decided to invite only 12. They did this not out of malice, but simply because their finest set of golden plates, meant for the christening feast, numbered only 12. They believed it was a small detail, one that would be understood in the spirit of the occasion. On the day of the christening, the 12 invited fairies arrived, each one radiating a soft, gentle light. They moved through the crowd with a graceful, unhurried ease, their robes flowing like mist. The air was filled with the faint scent of wildflowers and the quiet hum of their presence. They gathered around the cradle where the little princess lay, her tiny chest rising and falling with the rhythm of her peaceful breath. One by one, they stepped forward to offer their gifts. The first fairy, with eyes the color of a calm forest pool, knelt down and whispered a blessing. "She shall have the gift of beauty," she said, her voice like the rustling of leaves. And as she spoke, a soft, warm glow enveloped the princess, a glow that would forever rest on her features, not as a dazzling light, but as a soothing, gentle radiance. The second fairy, whose hands were as delicate as a butterfly's wings, offered her gift. "She shall have the gift of kindness," she murmured, and a feeling of profound gentleness settled in the air around the cradle, a promise that the princess's heart would always be a source of warmth and compassion. The third fairy, her hair woven with threads of silver moonlight, gave her gift. "She shall have a singing voice, as clear and sweet as the chime of a distant bell," she promised, and a faint, melodic echo seemed to linger in the air, a preview of the lovely songs the princess would one day sing. And so it continued. The gifts were soft and profound, each one adding a new layer of grace and goodness to the little princess. The fourth fairy gave her wisdom, a quiet knowing that would guide her through life. The fifth bestowed upon her patience, a calm strength that would help her wait for things to unfold at their own gentle pace. The sixth gave her a serene happiness, a deep-seated joy that would always be a part of her. The seventh gave her grace, an effortless way of moving through the world. The eighth gave her a peaceful spirit, one that would remain untroubled even in the midst of life's little disturbances. The ninth gave her a gentle humor, a soft laugh that would bring smiles to those around her. The 10th gave her a love for all living things, a bond that would connect her to the quiet life of the forest and the fields. The 11th gave her a quiet confidence, a sense of self-assurance that was as calm and steady as the earth beneath her feet. As the 12th fairy, a kind and elderly woman with a face as wrinkled as a dried apple, began to approach the cradle, a shadow fell over the courtyard. It was not a dark or menacing shadow, but a sudden, unexpected hush. The air grew still, and a subtle coolness spread through the gathering. Everyone turned to see the arrival of the 13th fairy, the one who had not been invited. She did not look angry or upset, but simply weary and a little sad. Her robes were a muted grey, and she carried a staff carved from a gnarled, forgotten root. She looked at the king and queen with eyes that seemed to have seen a great deal of sorrow, and with a voice that was soft, almost a whisper, she spoke. "I was not invited," she said, her words hanging in the air like a fading sigh, "and so I bring my own gift." She looked down at the peaceful face of the sleeping princess. Her words were not spoken in a curse, but as a somber prophecy. "The princess shall indeed have all these wonderful gifts," she said, her voice trailing off. "But on her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and fall into a deep and lasting sleep." Her voice was so quiet that some people had to lean closer to hear the final weary words, "A sleep from which she will not awaken." A collective, gentle gasp rippled through the courtyard. It was not a sound of horror, but of quiet disbelief. The 13th fairy looked at them for a long moment, then turned and, with the same unhurried pace, walked away, disappearing into the soft light of the afternoon. The king and queen were deeply saddened, but they did not panic. They simply looked at each other with a quiet resolve. The 12th fairy, who had not yet given her gift, now stepped forward. She could not undo the prophecy, for the gifts of the fairies were not so easily changed, but she could soften its edges. She reached out and touched the little princess's forehead with a fingertip that felt like a warm, gentle breeze. "The princess shall indeed fall into a deep sleep," she said, her voice soothing and calm, "but it will not be forever. After 100 years, a prince will come to waken her with a gentle kiss, and until then, the entire kingdom shall fall into a peaceful slumber alongside her." And so, the king, a man of quiet contemplation, made a simple decision. He decreed that every spinning wheel in the kingdom be gathered and burned, so that no one could ever use them again. His people, with their own quiet sadness, followed his command. It was a slow and gentle process. One by one, the old spinning wheels, with their familiar whirring and clacking, were carried to the central square and laid on a pyre. The fire that consumed them was not a roaring inferno, but a soft, flickering warmth, and the smoke that rose from it was as delicate as a wisp of cloud. The years passed in a serene and peaceful way. The princess, whose name was now Aurora, grew up to be a girl of quiet beauty and a calm spirit. She moved through the castle with a gentle grace, her voice as sweet as the songs the fairies had promised. Her days were filled with simple pleasures, strolling through the sun-drenched gardens, reading stories by the hearth, and sitting on the stone bench by the fountain, just listening to the water's unending murmur. She was beloved by all, not for her radiant appearance, but for the profound peace she carried within her. Her world was one of soft colors, gentle sounds, and unhurried moments. As her 16th birthday approached, a subtle, unspoken anticipation settled over the kingdom. It was not a feeling of dread, but a quiet, almost sad sense of inevitability. The king and queen, in their gentle wisdom, had not tried to hide the prophecy from her. They had told her the story, not as a warning, but as a part of her destiny, something to be accepted with a calm heart. Aurora herself had listened with a quiet understanding, a serenity that seemed to be a part of her very being. On the morning of her 16th birthday, the castle was even more hushed than usual. Aurora awoke to the sound of soft birdsong outside her window. She dressed in a simple, pale blue gown and wandered through the quiet halls. Her footsteps made no sound on the polished stone floors. She felt drawn to a part of the castle she had never explored before, a winding staircase that led to a forgotten tower. The air there felt old and still, a place where time itself seemed to have slowed to a crawl. The stairs spiraled upward, each step a gentle ascent, and Aurora followed them with a quiet curiosity. At the top of the stairs, she found a small, dusty room. The light that filtered through the single, narrow window was soft and hazy, illuminating particles of dust dancing in the air. In the corner of the room, half hidden by a faded tapestry, sat an old woman. She was as still as a statue, her back hunched over a curious contraption. It was a spinning wheel. She was not spinning with any great speed, but with a slow, deliberate movement, her fingers guiding a piece of flax into a fine thread. She looked up at Aurora with eyes that were as ancient as the stones of the tower itself. She smiled a small, gentle smile. "Good morning, little one," she said, her voice a low, raspy whisper. "Come closer. Would you like to try?" Aurora did not hesitate. The wheel, with its quiet, rhythmic hum, seemed to call to her. She stepped forward and sat on a small stool beside the old woman. She reached out her hand, a soft and delicate hand, and touched the spindle. It was not sharp or menacing, but smooth and cool to the touch. But as she touched it, a very small, almost unnoticeable prick occurred on the tip of her index finger. It was not a painful sensation, just a tiny, momentary sting. As soon as the prick happened, a soft and heavy feeling of calm washed over her. Her eyelids began to feel very, very heavy. She felt as though she was sinking into a soft bed of clouds. She did not fight the feeling. She simply let her body relax. The room around her began to blur, the shapes and colors melting into a soft, hazy warmth. She leaned back against a nearby stone wall, and with a slow, deliberate exhale, her eyes fluttered closed. Her last conscious thought was of the peaceful, humming sound of the spinning wheel. And so, she fell into her deep and lasting slumber. As the sleep took hold of her, a wave of profound stillness spread from the tower room, through the entire castle, and out into the kingdom. The king, who was walking through his garden, suddenly felt his eyelids grow heavy, and he leaned against a rose bush, his breathing becoming slow and deep. The The queen, who was seated by a window, fell asleep with her needlework in her lap, her head gently resting against the cushion. The cooks in the kitchen, the guards at their posts, the maids polishing the silver, all of them, at that very moment, felt the soothing embrace of sleep. Their movements slowed to a stop, their bodies relaxed, and they settled into a quiet stillness. Outside the castle walls, the same deep slumber fell upon the entire kingdom. The farmer in his field stopped in mid-stride, his hoe gently falling from his hand. The shepherd on the hillside settled down beside a sleepy lamb. The baker, who was kneading dough, simply rested his arms on the wooden table, his head bowed. The birds in the sky came to rest on the branches, their songs fading into a soft, quiet silence. Even the babbling brooks seemed to slow their flow, their murmurs becoming a faint, drowsy hum. A thick, dark wood of thorn bushes and tangled vines began to grow up around the castle. It was not a menacing or threatening forest, but a gentle, silent barrier. The thorns were not sharp and cruel, but soft and pliable, and the vines were as soft as velvet to the touch. They grew slowly, steadily, in a quiet and unhurried way, weaving themselves together to form an impenetrable wall, a natural blanket that would protect the sleeping kingdom for the next 100 years. The world outside the thorns continued to turn, but inside, 100 years felt like a single, long, peaceful moment. The sun would rise and set, the seasons would turn from green to gold to white, and the wind would whisper through the branches of the thorn forest. But within, nothing changed. The dust in the tower room rested undisturbed. The queen's needlework remained in her lap. The king's head rested gently against the rosebush. The entire kingdom was held in a quiet suspension, a long, deep breath held in time. 100 years came and went, as quietly as a falling leaf. The legend of the sleeping princess and her kingdom had become a faint whisper, a bedtime story told to children by the firelight. Then, one day, a young prince was riding through that part of the world. He was not a prince of great ambition or a thirst for adventure, but a gentle, thoughtful young man who enjoyed the simple rhythm of the land. He heard the old tale of the sleeping kingdom and felt a quiet curiosity. He rode his horse toward the place where the castle was said to be, and there, before him, he saw the ancient thorn forest. He did not try to hack or tear his way through the thicket. He simply walked toward it with a calm and gentle step. As he did, the vines and thorns, as if in recognition of his peaceful intent, seemed to part before him, creating a narrow, winding path. He followed it, his feet making no sound on the soft, mossy earth. The air within the forest was still and silent, a quiet, peaceful stillness that made his own breathing seem loud and rushed. He emerged from the forest into a silent, sun-dappled courtyard. He saw the sleeping guards, their heads bowed, their spears resting by their sides. He saw the sleeping cooks, their aprons dusty with the flour of a century. He saw the sleeping king and queen, their faces serene and untroubled. The whole castle was a study in profound stillness, a place of quiet, deep rest. He walked through the halls, his steps echoing softly in the silence. He found the winding staircase and climbed it, his heart beating with a slow, steady rhythm. He entered the small, dusty tower room. The light was soft and hazy, just as it had been 100 years ago. And there, on a narrow bed, lay the Princess Aurora. Her face was as beautiful and peaceful as the day she had fallen asleep. Her hair, the color of spun gold, was fanned out on her pillow. Her chest rose and fell with with a soft, slow rhythm. The years had not touched her. The prince knelt beside the bed. He was not a man of loud or dramatic gestures. He simply looked at her with a quiet, gentle love. He leaned down and with a soft and tender touch, placed his lips against hers. It was not a kiss of passion, but a kiss of profound peace, a gentle, silent awakening. As his lips touched hers, the quiet, 100-year-long sleep began to break. The princess's eyes fluttered open, slowly, softly, like a flower unfurling its petals in the morning sun. Her gaze, when it met his, was clear and calm. A faint, gentle smile touched her lips. "You have come," she whispered. Her voice a soft, beautiful melody, a song that had been silent for a century. And with her awakening, the stillness of the kingdom began to fade. A gentle, collective sigh rippled through the castle. The king stirred and sat up, rubbing his eyes, a look of peaceful wonder on his face. The queen's hands began to move, as if she were continuing her needlework. The guards at their posts straightened their shoulders. The bakers in the kitchen began to knead their dough once more. The thorn forest, as quietly as it had grown, began to recede, the vines and branches retracting, the thorns softening and disappearing. The sun's light seemed to grow a little brighter, the air a little warmer. The kingdom, once more, was alive, not with a sudden rush of noise and energy, but with a slow, gentle hum, the quiet resumption of life's simple, beautiful rhythms. The prince and the princess, hand in hand, walked down the stairs. Their feet made soft sounds on the stone now, a quiet promise of a gentle future. They did not speak much, for their hearts were filled with a serene understanding. They were content to simply be together, to walk side by side, to share the quiet peace that had been so long in the making. Their wedding was a simple and calm affair, a gathering of people who had awakened from a long rest, their faces filled with a quiet joy. The music was soft and melodic, the feasting unhurried. The prince and princess ruled their kingdom with a gentle hand, a quiet wisdom, and a profound love for their people. The years that followed were peaceful and unhurried. The kingdom settled back into its quiet contentment, its days marked by the soft rhythm of the seasons. And so, the princess and the prince lived out their lives together, and their story became not a tale of a dramatic curse, but a gentle reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life require a long, peaceful wait, and that a deep, lasting sleep can be the quietest, most reassuring way to a new and beautiful beginning. Their lives were a soft, unending song, a melody that slowly, gently faded into the peaceful whisper of the wind through the trees, inviting the listener to drift off into their own calm and restful slumber.